Have you ever felt like the whole world was against you? As if everything was rising up to bring you down? In times like these, we need to remember that we serve a God who is in control. Even when it seems like everyone is against us, God is still on our side. So let's dive into Psalm 2 and discover the motivation we need to keep going. Welcome back to Psalms, the book of the heart. Before we start, I want to encourage you to subscribe for daily devotionals and more. Let's begin. Why do the nations rage? Why do the kings conspire against the Lord and his anointed? They say, "Let's break their chains and throw off their restraints." This psalm begins with a rhetorical question. David, the author, is looking at the chaos around him. He sees the nations and their leaders banding together, raging against God's plans and his chosen leader. It's a rebellion against God's authority. And then in verse 3, he hears their evil plot. They want to overthrow God's rule by force. They want to destroy the system God established. It's a dangerous conspiracy. We can imagine David feeling threatened, worried about how this rebellion might affect him, his family, and God's people. But in the midst of this rising tension, something remarkable happens. David doesn't panic. Instead, he pauses, takes a step back, and looks to God for guidance. He reminds himself that God is in control. And that's when he realizes that even though the world may be conspiring against him, God has a plan. In verse 4, there's a shift. The tone changes from worry to peace. We hear a change in David's attitude. What does he see? He sees God. He sees that God is watching, that God knows what's happening, and that God is in control. Verse 4 says, "The one enthroned in heaven laughs." Imagine the scene. The kings and nations are plotting, scheming, trying to figure out how to defeat God. And meanwhile, God is sitting on his throne, just watching, and he's laughing. Not a mean laugh, but a laugh of amusement, of confidence, of absolute control. God is saying, "Don't worry, David, I've got this." This is important for us to remember because in life, things don't always go our way. Sometimes it feels like the world is against us. Maybe you're facing opposition at work, betrayal by someone you trusted, or maybe you're dealing with health issues or financial problems. Whatever it is, it can feel like you're in the middle of a storm, alone and afraid. But if we can learn to look beyond our circumstances and focus on God, we'll realize that he's in control. Just like David, we can find peace in the midst of the storm. Now let's continue with the psalm and see what God tells us next. Verses 6 to 9 tell us what God will do. He will establish his king. Look at verses 6 and 7. "I have installed my king on Zion, my holy mountain. I will proclaim my victory in Jerusalem. I will tell the world about my salvation. I will praise you among the nations. I will sing praises to you." These verses show us that despite the opposition and rebellion, God is still in control. He will establish his king and make his victory known throughout the world. God reminds us that nothing can stop his plan. He is more powerful than any earthly ruler, and no matter how much they try to resist, he will ultimately win. These verses also remind us that God's plan is bigger than us. Our individual problems are small in comparison to God's overall plan for humanity. So whenever we face challenges, let's remember that God is working. Verse 8 tells us something amazing about Jesus. "You are my son. Today I have begotten you." This verse reveals an important truth about Jesus Christ. Despite being eternal, God calls Jesus his son. Jesus is not just a servant or prophet. He is God's chosen representative on earth. Through Jesus, God's plan of salvation for humanity is fulfilled. Verse 9 continues with God speaking to Jesus. "Ask me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, the ends of the earth your possession." Here, God gives Jesus authority over the nations. He promises that Jesus will inherit the nations as his reward. This promise emphasizes the importance of Jesus' mission on earth. He came to represent God and carry out God's plan for humanity. Verses 10 to 12 offer us advice. They tell us what to do in the face of opposition. Listen to these words. Therefore, you kings, be wise. Worship the Lord with reverence. Serve the Lord with fear, and he will be your refuge, your protector. The Lord will judge the nations. He will punish the people for their sins. Thus, you who are young, come to know him. Happy are you who call on him for help. These verses are like a beacon of hope. They tell us that even when the world opposes us, God is our refuge, our protector. All we need to do is put our trust in him and serve him with all our heart. Let's reflect on this for a moment. How often do we turn to God when we face challenges? Are we quick to complain and despair? Or do we lift our eyes to God for help? Remember, no matter what we go through, God is always there for us, ready to guide and protect us. We just need to ask. In the last part of the psalm, there's a final piece of advice, a warning and a promise. Verses 11 and 12 say, "Kiss the Son, lest he become angry and turn from you suddenly. Then may the nations be destroyed without remedy. Happy are all you who take refuge in him and escape his wrath." Here, David urges the people to accept God's plan and submit to Jesus Christ. He warns them not to reject God's mercy and forgiveness. And if they choose to follow God, he promises them safety and protection from harm. These verses are a reminder that God desires a relationship with us. He wants us to come to him and receive his blessings. But if we reject him, if we turn away from his plan, then we only have ourselves to blame for any trouble that follows. This brings us to the end of Psalm 2. A seemingly simple psalm, yet filled with deep meaning and powerful lessons. Like David, we too can face moments when it feels like the whole world is against us. But as followers of God, we must remember that he is always on our side. So my friends, as you face the challenges of life, remember that God is in control. He has a plan for you, and no one can stop it. Trust in him, serve him with all your heart, and never forget that you are blessed. No matter what happens, God is your refuge, and he will never leave you nor forsake you. I invite you to take these words to heart and let them guide you in your walk with God. May you experience the peace that only God can give, and may you always remember that you are loved and chosen by God. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the book of Psalms. If this devotional touched your heart, don't hesitate to share it with someone who needs to hear these words. Also, I invite you to follow us for daily devotionals. And if you have a prayer request or a word of thanks, please comment below. I would love to pray with you and for you. May God bless you, and until next time, remember to lift your eyes to the heavens, for God is on your side.